Hi, welcome to this DCP Web HTML5 and CSS beginners tutorial. In today's tutorial we'll look at CSS float function. So let's open up our Notepad++, we'll open up our folder, we'll go to the Sun project, we'll drag and drop the index file if you don't already have that. We'll create a new file, we don't even need to create a new one. All we do is go to CSS and drag and drop that in here as well. We'll open up our web browser and we will finally drag our page into here. So this is where we left it last time. Let's just get our code up. We're going to look at something called the float function, right? CSS float style. So a good example would be, let's say if we wanted to add a picture and we wanted the picture to be on the left hand side here in the top corner or the right hand side here, and we wanted to put two paragraphs, maybe like this green section, we wanted two of them but side by side. How will we do that using CSS? So let's go back to wiki because we need a picture right first, and we'll type in sun here and we can use this picture. Let's use this one. So it's of the sun. Let's click download here. You need to attribute the author, right? So show me. So we'll add the link in after. So let's download the image first. So click download and we've got the picture here. And we'll go into the images directory. In our Sun project we've got the images directory and we'll drag and drop the image into here. So we've got the picture in here. And normally I wouldn't name the picture like that. I'll normally use all lowercase and put hyphens in there. So it'll be sun-white.jpg like that. It's easier for me to remember and to write. So when you're naming things, especially images or files or PDF files or whatever it might be, it's always worth just using all lowercase and separating the words with hyphen. That way you haven't got to remember if something was a capital S or a capital W, was it underscore, was it hyphens. Just use one naming convention and then you're good to go. So let's we will copy this text here, right? Because it says after, let's see, in fact we could be a bit cheeky, right, and click on HTML, copy this, scroll down to the bottom of our page somewhere down here and just paste it here for now. So when we go back to our website and refresh, it will say that's the image, the reference for that image, where it came from, right? Maybe we'll position that somewhere else afterwards, but let's leave it there for now. Really you'd only ever need to do that if you're going to publish the page on the internet. This page here will never really publish on the internet, but if you're going to publish it and actually have other people look at the page, then you'll need to give an attribute to the author using this HTML here. Well, you can do a plain text version. We can copy this, paste it in here. It's still probably going to have a link in it anyway, I guess. Yeah, it'll still have a link. So we're better off just using the HTML like this. Just makes life a little easier. Anyway, let's save our document. Let's increase this here. We've got the image. Let's close this. Now we're going to use HTML to add our image. We should know how to do this now, but we'll give it a quick go here. So we do an open tag and we're going to do image source, S-O-U-R-C-E, source, and that image was in a folder called images and it was called sun-white, I think, .jpg. So let's check that. The image was called sun-white.jpg in a folder called images. So we've got images here, sun-white.jpg, and if we just save this and refresh it, we'll see our picture here. It's massive though, right? One thing to note, when you're using your web browser, if you hold down the control key and use the mouse wheel, you can zoom in and out, right? And sometimes the browser might be set to something like 200%. So you're not really seeing how most people would see the website. So really it's preferable that you reduce the size so that it's set to 100%. So just hold down the control key and you can use your mouse wheel up and down, or you can use the plus and minus key on your keyboard. So you can use plus and minus key on the keyboard, holding down the control key, yeah? and always set it to 100%. Before, I think when we was doing these updates and these, it was set to a different setting. I think it was set to a much higher, something like 150, which is okay, but you got to remember, not everyone will have their browser set to 150. So if you set yours to 100, then you can assume most people have it set to 100 as well, and you'll be good to go. So we've got this image here and it's way too big. So let's set the width to something like 200, and we'll set the height also to 200. Now if you remember from our HTML tutorials, when we was doing HTML, there was one more thing that we needed to add. I don't know if you can remember. I'll give you a few seconds to remember. Okay, the one thing that we needed to add was the alt tag. So the alt tag was for visually impaired people, so people that can't really see what this image is. They may just see like a black box or a white circle in a black box and not really understand. To be honest, this picture is not very clear anyway what it is. I mean, if I looked at that, I wouldn't know it was the sun. So let's actually describe it. The picture of the sun, right? So anyone with visual impairments will now know, their screen reader will say, look, actually this picture here is a picture of the sun. So if we refresh it, nothing's going to happen. So somehow, using CSS, we need to say that this image, right now it is actually on the left, but we want it on the left and we want this text to wrap around it, let's say, yeah? So we want the text to start here and fill this space and underneath it as well. So how will we do that? So we need to add a class. So we'll add a class. Let's call this class something like, remember we can name our classes whatever we want. So we'll call it, let's call it something quite specific, right? So like sun image position. So the sun image position, that's the name of the class. So we'll copy that name, copy it, Control C. Let's save our document. Go to styles here, and down here we'll do dot sun position. And remember, we're going to introduce you to the float style. So to do this sun position, we might do something like float. Let's do float. And then when we press space, we can do R, right. So let's try and see what happens. If we refresh, now the image is on the right. Here it is. And as we increase our browser, it will stay on the right. And as we shrink it right down, it will still stay on the right side. So regardless if you're looking on a mobile phone or desktop, it's going to stay in that position. Yeah. So you can see a good example of this. Let's go to here. Maybe we can find something like this picture here, right? Can you see how it stays on the right? And it increases and it decreases in size. So that's using some similar style, yeah, similar logic on my website. Just so happens this is not the best picture, but later we can program this a bit better using other techniques to make it increase or decrease and do certain things. But for now, we'll just leave it as a basic thing, right? We're just showing some basics. So we can, you know, it might look better if the image is on the left. So change the float to the left side and refresh. Now that I think the picture looks better on the left. It's up to you. You can have it left or right. But you can see this text is very, very close to the edge. So we can use another element. And what would that be called? Think about it, right? We want some padding. So we'll do padding, and then you've got some options here. Do you want padding on the top, the left, the right? Just general padding all around the image. Really, we want the padding to be on the right hand side of the image, the right side. So we'll do padding dash right, and we'll set it to something like 10 pixels. Yeah. We're not using percentages, we're using pixels. So each dot on the screen is a pixel, and we want 10 of those pixels gap here. So when we refresh, we'll see that 10 gap here. Then regardless if we resize it, we've got this nice uniform gap around the image. And then if we were to put the image on the left side, so image on the right side, image right, refresh, then really we've got the padding on the right side. So we need to switch this padding right to the left side. That makes sense because we want the padding on this side now. So if we refresh, now we've got the padding on this side. Okay, hopefully that all made sense. Now what if we wanted 2 paragraphs here, side by side? So let's go back to this wiki page. And let's save this content, right? Let's save this. And we're going to put some more content down here. So let's put a paragraph, so P for paragraph. And then we want to add some text here. So we'll go to this wiki page, we'll go to the Sun project or the Sun website. And the last bit of text we used was Fusion right here, yeah? It's text Fusion. So let's copy this text here and paste it into the paragraph. Let's go down and copy maybe this section here. We'll paste it here. We probably need a bit more. Let's take these 2 sections and paste them here as well. So we've roughly got similar sort of size paragraphs. So we need to close our paragraph. We'll get rid of this 22. Let's close the paragraph. And then let's go back to our website and refresh. And now we've just got this paragraph of text here. Right? Now, let's say that we wanted it to look exactly like the green one above. How would we do that? This should be super simple now. All we need to do is copy this div tag and paste it here. And then copy this closing one and paste it. Let's need this paragraph to be in here, right? Let's go down a bit, paste it here. We'll move this paragraph to here. I made a mistake there. And we'll move this text up a little bit to here. And refresh it. Now we've got 2 green blocks that look similar. But we want one on the left and one on the right. Now the problem we have at the moment is our additional text class for these 2 paragraphs is the same. So it can't be the same because we can't say to one of them be on the left and the other one be on the right. It's not going to work. So we'll do additional text left. We'll create a new class and we'll create another new class here, additional text right, and save it. And when we refresh, everything's going to go because this class is, let's get rid of this one. This class is not being used anymore, the original one. So if we go back to our CSS, we can see additional text and we'll do left. And let's make this background color gray. It's really hard to see at the moment. So if we refresh, this top one will now be additional text left. So if we take all of this CSS style and paste it down, then just change left to right, because we targeted the second paragraph with the right, yeah, here, the right class. Now we've got 2 side by side. Well, they're not side by side yet. We're going to do that now. So what if we wanted to put one on the left and one on the right? If we manage to put the image on the left or the image on the right, so why don't we just do float left for the left one, and we'll do float right. Let's do that quickly for the right one and refresh, and it didn't work. So there's a problem here. Let's try and fix that. So the problem is we're telling this particular style to make the width 100%. So how can it take half of this screen width if you're telling it to be 100% of the width? It doesn't make sense. So we need to set this to 50 and set this one to also 50. And if we refresh now, it's still not working, so something's still wrong. Let's have a look. Why is that not working? That should work in theory, but we'll work it out now. So 50, 50. Let's try and set this. Let's have a look here. What's going wrong here? So additional text left, additional text right. Sometimes things will go wrong, yeah? So you've got to figure it out. So that looks fine. Additional text right, additional text left. additional text left and additional text right. That seems to be correct. So we've got our float here. Just make sure the spelling is right. That looks okay. So let's try and set this to a smaller width, something like 49. And here you go. So it was actually, you can't do it 50-50 split. Or maybe it was just to, let's try it 50-50. Okay, the reason was, it was actually split left and right. When we looked at it this way, it is actually 2 columns. It looks a bit strange. It is actually 2 columns, but the columns are so tightly packed together at 50-50, because you're splitting them exactly 50-50, you can't really see that they're 2 separate sections. The only way you can really see it is when you stretch it out and you can see there's like a gap here, right? Because really that line sits right down here. So there was split before, there wasn't an error. The reason why we can't see it clearly is that they're both equal widths. If you set one to 49 and one to 50, then there'll at least be a little gap in between them. And now you can see it a bit clearer, right? The 2 paragraphs, especially when you stretch it out. But when you get to sort of like a mobile view, don't worry about the design right now. We're really learning just the basis of the code. Later in future tutorials, we'll really look at design and adding padding and making it look a bit better, right? Visually. Right now we're just learning the raw code. So later when we come to implement that code, you're going to understand it. That's more important right now. So that's how we do some paragraphs side by side, and that's how we can float an image. And one thing we need to do is we need to clear floats, right? This is quite important. So let's say let's just do one thing here, right? So let's copy this image. We'll copy this image here, this particular image, and we're going to paste it right below this other paragraph here. We'll paste it right here and refresh. You can see the image is sitting right here. That isn't really what we want. So what we'll do is we need to write something called a clear. We need to tell the browser to clear this float. We should really clear this one as well. So here, what we'll do, let's put the first clear float here. So we're going to create a div tag, and we'll close that div tag. And we're going to give the class a name, and it's going to be called clear dash float. That's the name of the class, clear dash float. So we need to create this class now. So let's copy this, come to here, we'll scroll down to the bottom, and we'll do dot clear float, and we will create a class which says clear, and then we've got some options here. We can either clear, we can clear both, we can clear the left side only, but we're going to clear both the left and right side on this particular clear float. When we refresh, we won't really see much happen, but when we go down to here and we copy this again and we'll paste it right here to clear the ones above, and we'll save this. Let's save this and refresh. You'll see the image now sits on the right, because what we've done here is this clear float, where we're doing the floats here for the left and right, those continue, those clear floats continue, you could say, yeah, they'll continue down. The software doesn't understand that you need to stop this clear float, so we have to tell the web browser to stop doing that particular action at a certain point. So we're telling it to stop here. So we could, in theory, delete this class in the image. If we did that and refreshed, then the image will sit on the left hand side, yeah, like this. And then it's got the name, this attribute here, attribution. So clear float is quite important. All we're telling the browser is at a certain point we want to stop this particular type of action. Yeah. Especially when we want to break something and start a new paragraph, for example. This image isn't really a good example, so let's delete that for a second. Let's get rid of that image. And we'll get rid of this clear float temporarily. And what we do is, let's put another paragraph in here. It might be a bit clearer then, right? P for paragraph. We'll go back to Wikipedia. We'll copy. Let's just copy this little paragraph. We'll copy this one here. Let's just copy it in order. Copy, paste. Oops, that's a way too much. This bit here, we'll copy it, paste it here, and then we'll do a paragraph here. Let's refresh that. Can you see how it's sitting in here like this, right underneath this this column here? What if we wanted it to just be on its own line, its own section, a bit like above here? Imagine if we wanted that text to just sit right underneath all of these columns. We can use the clear float. So if we take this and we paste it right here and refresh, now it sits on its own section. It's separated away from above what was happening here. That's what clear float does. Okay, let's tidy up this paragraph. We've got it here now, so let's set the class to it. So we could really, we need to create a. We shouldn't really use the intro class, right? Because that was for introduction text. We can't use the left or right one because that will left or right align it. So let's create a new class. Where are we? Paragraph here. So here we'll create a div tag. Call it class. And we want our original class back again. Unfortunately, we have to do that. Additional text. This is the one that we had at the beginning. Shouldn't have really deleted that, but we live and learn. We'll put a div tag in here, and then we'll just go and copy one of these. Let's copy this one here, and we'll put it right above. And we'll just get rid of this left, and we'll get rid of the float, and we'll set it to 100%. Then we'll refresh. We've got it sitting on the full width again. So now they'll all be independent, those three sections, right? And the image and everything will work correctly. So after you float something, if you don't want to maintain that left or right float for the subsequent text, so this block for here, for example, if I were to get rid of that clear float, let's just delete it temporarily. Control X to delete. Oops, let's delete the right one. Control X and save. Refresh. It's going to get joined up in this content here. But if we do clear float, then it will be all separated out. These two are now independent away from these ones down here. Okay, I hope that makes sense. This will make more sense later when we come to really build something, especially, you know, really all of this stuff is really gearing you up for using Bootstrap. Because when we start to use Bootstrap, a lot of this left column, right column, 3 on a row, 3 columns, image on the left, image on the right, padding and put a picture in the header and all this lovely stuff that we can do on websites. Let's take a look at a little example. If we go to here, so a lot of these projects that I build for my clients, let's take a look at window shadings, for example. Yeah, it's a really nice website. So when we look at this website, this was built using Bootstrap software. Yeah, so you can see image on the left and all of these 4 boxes, and if we go to a specific page like curtains, we've got an image on the left and text on the right. So we're using float and CSS and many different functions to achieve this. But this will be much, much easier when we come to using, look how it's designed and all the columns. Look at the columns, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can do like 6 columns here and then 1 column separated over here. But we need to use the right coding techniques to do this. So I hope that all makes sense. Don't worry too much right now. If you're not understanding this float too well, it will make more sense later. when we come to build more complex projects using Bootstrap. So that will be the end of this particular tutorial explaining float. We'll close this down. And I look forward to seeing you in the next DCP web tutorial.